Good day, my name is Aakash Patel and I'm the president and founder of Elevate Inc. We were founded in 2012 with the mission of helping companies that are relocating to the Bay Area and entrepreneurs that are starting businesses learn, connect, and grow in our community. Our podcast features our guests and community leaders that are doing just that, helping our city elevate Tampa. We're always proud to have great guests featured, so if you have interest in learning about our organization or our podcast, please email us at info@elevate-inc.com. As always, we want to feature our clients that are doing great things in our community. And today I want to welcome one of our new clients, Kiosk, and give them a nice shout out. Kiosk offers no-touch management kiosks with temperature measurements capability and includes facial recognition for employees. Kiosk offers a safe and healthy way for temperature checks and employee recognition by providing a desktop, pedestal, wall mount that you can choose from and has hand sanitizer stations installed inside. Elevate Inc. is happy to have Kiosk as part of our team, and together we'll continue to stay healthy and provide safety for everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on episode 14, season 1. We really appreciate it and look forward to our interview with Brian Kornfeld, the co-founder and CEO of Synapse. Good day. My name is Aakash Patel, president and founder of Elevate Inc., and you're watching our Elevate Inc. Today podcast, and we've got episode 14, season 1, and my guest today is my friend Brian Kornfeld, the co-founder and CEO of Synapse. Brian, thanks for joining us today.
Aakash, thank you so much for having me.
Now, Brian, a lot of people know about Synapse, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but who is Brian Kornfeld?
So Brian Kornfeld has had a very interesting career path. I actually started as an aerospace engineer out of college and grad school. I'm from the Tampa Bay area originally, just love it here, have always loved everything about this region. Moved out to LA for a couple of years, and about 11 years ago, late 2009, decided I wanted to move back and make this my home. As I was progressing through my career, as I was rising through the corporate ladder, I was realizing I didn't like corporate America very much. I don't play the politics game overly that well, and I wanted to be my own boss, always saw that there was something there and always thought I was capable of a lot more. So I started launching a couple companies. I launched my first endeavor in 2013, the first profitable company in 2014, a couple other partnerships along the way. And then really in 2016, started to dig in a little bit more as to the Tampa Bay region and why it wasn't taking off in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship. And that's where I really found a footing for myself, was starting to think bigger picture, starting to think more than just an organization, but starting to think about mission, starting to think about connection, starting to think about playing off my strengths, and have really been proud about what I've been able to give back to the community since.
So a lot of people are thinking out now, you're a rocket scientist who started a technology innovation hub. Mm-hmm. Is that normal?
Is anything normal? The idea of a normal lifestyle career trajectory, I could have very easily, starting when I was a kid, put myself through a path of following my dad, being a doctor, going pre-med, taking over his practice, living in Clearwater, being just, everything would have been already prescribed for me for my entire life, starting pretty much age 18. That's not fun. The fun and living once is in the adventure of figuring things out as you go, making mistakes, learning from the mistakes, growing from them, figuring out what does work well and leveraging that and pushing. So the normal for me has been trying out new things and seeing what happens and seeing how to best make that work. And that's a lot of the entrepreneurial mindset too. A lot of entrepreneurs will say, keep trying new things until you figure out what works, but don't let failure concern you.
Yeah, in the Business Journal recently, I wrote an op-ed that says, if you're successful, you have to fail. Otherwise, you're not really successful, right? So theoretically, when you started Synapse and you got together with some folks that were, talk about the folks you got together with to start the organization.
Yeah, so I'm just one of 3 co-founders of this organization and one of currently 5 team members. We've had some incredible team members along the way. But from the very early stages, I was doing the research of what was going on in the Tampa Bay market, why it was so inefficient. And somehow, luckily, I was at a 4th of July party that my friend from summer camp had invited me to, and I started talking to his father-in-law, and his father-in-law, Mark Blumenthal, was doing the exact same research just from an investor's perspective. And we set a 30-minute meeting that quickly turned into 2 hours on a whiteboard. And his vision, I mean, he's such a great visionary, and his mindset is so futuristic thinking and innovative thinking. We clicked right away on what we were thinking. And then Mark brought in a gentleman named Andy Hafer. Andy, at the time, was CEO of a group called Dynamic Communities, which builds user groups and communities around Microsoft products, and not just Word or Windows like we're used to, but CRM and BI, Dynamics, all these huge enterprise, multi-million-dollar tools that are used all over the world. And he makes them interesting and fun for people. And if you can make Microsoft tools, no offense to Microsoft, but if you can make computer software fun, you can make anything fun. So the way that he visions a community, the way that Mark can vision the future and big picture thinking, and the way that I could put it all into an operational plan, the three of us just really, it was a really dynamic triangle that is a lot of the reason why this has taken off so well in the last few years.
And the name Synapse, talk about the history of that name.
From the early stages, we actually weren't called Synapse. And even on my computer nowadays, I have never changed the folder name to Synapse on my computer where all the files are stored. We had a code name, like every good project, when this started. And it stemmed from a meeting that we had, I think it was at the UT boardroom, and Rebecca White was there, and Mark, and Ned Pope, and General Dave Scott, former two-star general, owns the Bad Monkey Bar in Ybor.
Yeah.
We were sitting around the table, and someone was asking about names and how does it make you feel. Dave just looks up and says, "Everybody shut up." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "We're calling this the Cuban Sandwich." "What do you mean?" He goes, "A Cuban sandwich, you wouldn't think much of it, but it's hard bread, 3 types of pork, mustard, mayonnaise, pickles, cheese. But when you take a bite out of it, it's perfect." And this Tampa Bay innovation community, that's what it is. It's all of these great ingredients that don't make much sense. When you put them together, it can be perfect. So we were the Cuban Sandwich Project for a good 6 to 12 months. And then one of our first team members, Wes Lehman from marketing, we were talking with him, and we'd actually hired a marketing group, and they were trying to come up with names. And Wes was like, "What about synapse?" "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, a synapse is a connection between the neurocells in the body." And that's what we are. We're the connector. We're the piece that makes the left arm and the right arm talk to each other. We're the piece that when there's a brainwave, we can make things move. And it all just made sense from there of the connections is what's going to matter. So thus where the name Synapse came from. It gets 100% attributed to Wes Lehman and his great strong branding that he has been able to pull off for us, and he's still a team member with us now to this day.
Now, as a new business, everyone is always looking to find ways to be creative, and also mirror the people that have done well in their organizations. So, when you founded Synapse, did you look at any other city, any other state, any other country that had an organization like Synapse?
We looked at more than I can count. Anything from large growing markets like Silicon Valley and Chicago to the mid-tier markets like Austin and Boulder to London and Tel Aviv, and actually Cincinnati we learned a lot from. And Cincinnati is not thought of much as a market. One of the things that we got was an article from EY called The Power of Five, and it talked about how innovation ecosystems are born. And it talks about 5 groups of people: the entrepreneur, the investor, government, corporations, entrepreneurs, investor, and educational institutions. I should have that memorized much better. And in Cincinnati, it talked about how the corporations were really spawning the innovation because they were investing and trying to be early adopters. And companies like Kroger and Procter & Gamble and Macy's all said, if we don't innovate differently, we're going to die, especially during the downturn of 2008 to 2012. And so they all started to innovate differently and really invest in early stage companies. And they're the companies that have been thriving compared to some of their rivals that have really gone up and gone out of business. One of the best world case examples of a best innovation community is Tel Aviv, Israel, though. And Israel they call Startup Nation.
Yeah.
And Startup Nation is because they just have so many startups, and they pump out billion-dollar companies like who knows? Like Tampa Bay pumps out Cuban sandwiches. And they really have built this community that is based on connections and based on this concept of how do we introduce people who should know each other? How do we make sure that people who aren't talking get to talk to each other? And that's where somebody like you has come in so successful, because you, Elevate Inc. has been able to really help spur on this entire economy. Organizations like Synapse, finding those connections, finding the natural points of whether it's a company and a customer, or an entrepreneur and an investor, or an entrepreneur and potentially research from a university. There's a lot here. Florida, Tampa Bay has so many great resources. It's a great place to grow a business. It's a great place to live. People get to work where they vacation. And even now, during this COVID downturn, we see a lot more people moving here because they're trying to create this exodus out of major markets, not wanting to pay $7,000 a month to live in a shoebox apartment where they can't get out, they can't be outdoors, they have to live through winter. So now there's so much more opportunity, and we just have to make sure the connections are taking place.
Yeah, and I know you know this because we knew each other way before I started Elevate Inc., but when I went to Israel with Mayor Buckhorn and the Jewish Federation in 2011, we went on the basis of that book, Startup Nation, you talked about, went to Tel Aviv and actually met with entrepreneurs, and then I started the business right after I came back from that trip, and we even wrote the business plan even on the plane. So yeah, I mean, it was a very inspiring and definitely a way to look after, mirror what we're doing. And I think not only then did you start, I think the organizations like The Wave, and then I think Embark Collective formed a little bit after that, and there's some other partners. So talk about, you know, Florida Funders too, the ecosystem of the Innovation Hub, and where do you all fit?
That's a really good question, and we get this a lot, and everybody plays their specific role. And as long as everybody continues to play their role so well, then we all are going to thrive. There's a reason our office is in Embark Collective, because we want to showcase a partnership that we're not competitive, we're not trying to do the same things, we're not trying to capitalize on the same resources, we're all trying to make this community succeed. So Tampa Bay Wave, they have a world-class accelerator, and they continually bring on great new programs. They have the tech diversity cohort, they have the women in tech, and now the cybersecurity accelerator to go on with all their other great programming that they do. Embark, it's this amazing in-person hub trying to mirror a little bit after 1871 in Chicago, which is a world-class example, and that's where Lakshmi Shenoy, the CEO, actually came down from. I had a great opportunity to tour 1871 in 2017, and I was just blown away by what they do there. And she's bringing so many of those great resources and helping founders really propel themselves. And you're starting to see founders who are coming through their programming move to new levels that we have not been able to see before. Tampa Bay Tech, helping to connect the corporations with the talent and the entrepreneurs. Tampa Bay Innovation Center, things that are going on in Pasco, Lakeland. Florida Funders being this now, they get recognized as one of the best investment funds in the state, and they're starting to see great returns. Getting money out from Pick My Kid, getting money out from PeerFit, seeing money grow through companies like Trash Butler and other companies that have been going through their program. They're starting now their second fund. So they're doing some big things to help propel this state. Everybody has that specific role. Synapse's role is to tie it all together and to help people discover the different resources, to help people engage with the resources, and also to really celebrate them, to showcase, to put people on a big stage and to say, look at all the great things that we're doing. We really try to help tell that world story that innovation is living right here.
That's a great tagline, and you know, I think everyone that knows you and knows how much you believe in that tagline, you know, we had an issue in March that, you know, something happened and changed the world, but just before that, Synapse happened in February. So talk about, you know, the conferences and the evolution of the actual physical conferences, and then what did you go through in March?
The evolution of the physical conferences has been quite interesting, because actually if we go back to our original business plan, you won't find the conference in there. It was never going to be a part of what we were doing, and it kind of fell right in our lap based on the first Innovation Summit that was put on with Florida Funders in the Business Journal back in 2017. and then a meeting with Bridget and Jason saying they couldn't really run an event of that size again. And so they said, why don't you all take it on? And then in 2018, we started talking about it. We were going to do something again at the Marriott Waterside for a day and a half. And then we said, all right, well, we have this great facility at Softworks. Let's showcase what they're doing. Let's do the first half day there. And then we said, well, why don't we do a party at Amalie Arena in the middle? Then we said, well, why don't we do a showcase at Amalie Arena? It's great. And then Shannon Pastiza, who is actually our first director of business development, we were just walking around the arena saying, how could we showcase stuff? We were going to do some small things on the club level and Fire Stick Grill. She just said, why don't we do the whole darn thing here? Looked at her, that's a really smart idea. And it just kind of took off from there and took its own life form. That first conference in 2018 had over 3,000 people show up. We had no clue what we were doing. We were just figuring this out as we went, but we knew we really wanted to do a couple of key things. We wanted to create collisions, and the concourses at the arena were great for that because people walk around in
positive
circles.
Collisions.
Yeah, positive. Yeah, not auto collisions. We want people to connect with each other and to bump into each other. Create that natural. Because we don't have a downtown that's really a walk, well, it's growing into that walkable downtown, but even in 2018, we didn't have a major walking city where you're not going to run into 100 people every day, or a coffee shop that you're just going to sit in and you're going to run into 15, 20 people. Maybe the Center Club, maybe the Starbucks on West Shore and Kennedy. Now, a couple more places, Buddy Brew has become a little bit more of that. It's really seen this evolution, but create those connections was a great thing, and to get everybody under one roof and to showcase that celebration with a grandiose main stage that people could talk from and sit in front of a sold-out crowd, a whole wall of people right in front of them, getting people like a CIO of IBM to come down and to be a part, showcasing Arnie Bellini and the growth of ConnectWise right before the sale was going to take place. Then in 2019, we wanted to do a little bit more with some of the larger companies, and we created the exhibition floor on the ice. 2020, we then said we now got to step our game up. How do we get a world-class keynote speaker, somebody who is a very recognizable name? And our target list, names 1 through 10, was Sarah Blakely. There was nobody else on our target list. Maybe there was a number 11 just as an extreme backup plan. But knowing that she's a self-made billionaire, what she did, her grit, her tenacity to get through what she did of selling copiers to make enough money, her story, and being from Clearwater, a graduate of Clearwater High School, a Florida State University graduate, living still in the Southeast, having family here. It was great for her to do it. And one of the thing that talks about her personality enough, the day before she was supposed to come down, she broke her ankle.
Oh, no.
Completely broke it. She tripped on a garden hose. I think she was being chased around by one of her kids. 99 out of 100 keynote speakers would have canceled their trip on that note. We were having panic attacks during the first day of the summit, thinking she was going to cancel. And we got a note by about 1 o'clock saying, nope, we're still in. I'm coming down. And she came down, and I just remember sitting outside waiting with a wheelchair to wheel her around the back of Amalie Arena to get 5 minutes, and being so grateful and so thankful. But that talks to the person that she is and the entrepreneur that she is. And that was a lesson that I'm going to take with me for the rest of my life, is to always be that person, no matter what comes at you, no matter what garden hose might trip you up. It's still good to be a good person. And I even took that with me even running an organization through COVID. COVID was really hard. We're an organization that makes a lot of our revenue based on an in-person event. And it was really hard when we were facing a reality that might not happen in 2021. And we're still facing that reality as we've had to pivot a lot. How do we stay relevant? How do we do things? But also, how do we keep our core team together? How do we keep this small staff? At the time going in, it was 6 people. The first day of shutdown was actually the first day our marketing director started. So we were 6 people starting that day. And it was hard. The team endured a lot. I have so much praise and so much respect for that team on what they went through for that, because they took it right on the chin and they kept working and they took it like a champ. It was really hard. There was, a lot of very difficult times. We dealt with pay cuts. We dealt with all sorts of things that were just really hard to go through. And the team took it well. we came up with some great ideas. We started doing a bi-weekly webinar called Libate and Learn, which was something different than a regular lunch and learn. We encouraged people, bring a beverage, have some fun, be lively and be engaging. We started doing larger virtual conferences. The summer Synapse Converge had over 1,000 people. In November, we ran Synapse Converge Global Entrepreneurship Week edition, directly for entrepreneurs, people who are thinking about being entrepreneurs for the first time. And we saw a great deal of success, some amazing education, and some awesome networking taking place. The team has been able to think differently about how do we keep these connections going, more than just people talking on Zoom. Now we're dealing with the Zoom fatigue. It's been a long time since March. It's been a number of months. And how do we keep people engaged? How do we keep people having fun? How do we keep people connected? How do we keep people discovering new things and willing to come out of their comfort zone to be able to do something a little bit different, because that's when innovation will happen.
And speaking of comfort zone, I have the pleasure and privilege of speaking. I spoke at the Summer Converge. It was a great experience, and I happen to be on the board of Synapse, and I've really enjoyed that. But at one of the board meetings during this pandemic, I think you shared a little bit about the social injustice going on in the world and how you address that head on. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can only imagine what it is like to be a person of color in America in 2020. I feel for them. I've had some really difficult conversations because it didn't hit me very hard until the George Floyd murder took place. And that's when it really started to hit me that there's something that's systemically wrong going on in this country. And it took a little bit for us to put a path in place, because it was really important to me to not be the organization that puts out a statement and then moves on, just to check the box. It was important to do something that is going to make long-term change. And when we started to dig in and started to look into statistics, particularly for Black founders, it's astonishing. Only, I believe it's 1% to 2% of all venture capital goes to Black founders. That's a criminally low number. And we need to find ways, and we were realizing we weren't doing enough outreach into the urban communities. We weren't doing enough to make sure that we had the right people on our stages, and trying hard enough. It wasn't necessarily based on a lack of knowledge. It was just there was more we could have done. And so we took it really hard. We formed a committee that can help us. We overhauled some of the ways that we do things within our board as well. We started putting some requirements in place, particularly amongst the different committees that we have. The committee you formed was not just people that were always active in Synapse. You reached out to other organizations and partners. We wanted fresh eyes. We wanted fresh ears. We wanted fresh perspective, very intentionally. We wanted people who might have been looking and paying attention, but saying, we're not going to get involved yet because of X, Y, Z. And we wanted to hear from them why they weren't getting involved. And we wanted it to be very much head on, because we know if we could not get them involved, it was never going to be fully a success at the end of the day. And we have a lot of work to do. We are really just in the very early stages of beginning this. There's going to be a lot more work that has to be done over the next number of years. This is not an overnight thing where you snap your fingers and the world changes. This is something that for the entire innovation community is going to take a lot of buy-in. And now we're even just starting to scratch the surface of digging in even further of who's engaged with the innovation community. How many people of color, how many people of Indian descent are engaged with the innovation community, and what are and how do we then bridge the gaps to get to where we should be, and how do we help get there? So those are some of the questions we're asking ourselves. We're doing very hard looks internally. We're looking hard at ourselves. We're looking hard at our stakeholders, at our partners, at our board members, and trying to figure out the best ways to propel forward, because that's where we know we can make a difference, is within the innovation community. It fits our mission. One of our core values is community first, and that includes everybody in the community, not just the people who we've done business with in the past.
Now, our community in Tampa Bay, we always talk about elevating reasons Tampa has swagger, and I always say Tampa has swagger because of Synapse, but you partnered with organizations in Miami and Orlando and Palm Beach on the tech side. And you even had a Synapse in Orlando of a physical conference the last year, right? One or two?
We've had one physical conference in Orlando. We were going to do one in 2020, but then 2020 happened. And, unfortunately, that was just something that really wasn't going to happen. But it's coming back. We're looking at how do we pull it off in 2021. Especially later in the year. Hopefully a vaccine can come into play and people start feeling safer. We start feeling a lot more comfortable. Safety is first and foremost for everybody, though. I would never want to put anybody in harm's way in any way, shape, or form, especially from this horrible virus that's going on, COVID-19, throughout the world. Synapse is a statewide organization. We do look at ourselves as being here.
We claim you in Tampa, though, just don't forget.
Well, our headquarters is here in Tampa. Our entire staff currently lives in Tampa. Our flagship event will take place in Tampa so long as our staff is all here. A, because it's easier, but B, it's very central to the state. And we really want to draw from the entire state. We want people from Gainesville to come and see. We want people from Jacksonville and Tallahassee and Miami and Naples and Orlando to all see all the great resources the state has to offer. It's not just a Tampa Bay thing. It's not just Tampa Bay companies and Tampa Bay resources, but there's no reason people can't connect and use the right resources from across the state. A lawyer that can work in Orlando can also work in Tampa. They're run by the state bar, not a city bar.
Right.
So there's no reason that the state can't be leveraging this, and especially now in our more virtual world, the world's gotten smaller. An investment fund out of Miami can easily invest in a fund in Tallahassee without ever meeting face to face. And it's amazing if people think about it in that light, what opportunities can be there for the state. Think about it in terms of state pride. The way people talk about Florida, I go on the rants a lot about, people always think of Florida as hurricanes and alligators and Disney and Florida man. We're a lot more than that. And like you always say, Tampa has swagger, Tampa Bay has swagger. Florida's got a lot of swagger too.
Yeah.
A lot of people are really proud to be from the state, to live in this state, to be a part of the state. There's a certain chip on Floridian shoulders, and it's really great to see. Now we're starting to claim our space in the innovation community in a big way.
Now, today is 2021, we'll just say, because we'll remember 2020. In 2026, 5 years from now, where is Brian Kornfeld and where is Synapse as an organization?
If I could answer where Brian Kornfeld is in 2026.
Or where would you like to be? I'll just say that.
I could be in a number of places. I could be perfectly happy running Synapse. I think we've done very well and we've built something really cool. It's hard to take that away, building something really cool. I go back, I was just recently rewatching The Social Network, and
great movie.
Great movie. The Mark Zuckerberg line when he's talking with Sean Parker and Walter Savrin, this is cool. You can't put a price tag on that. Not only that, but I'm really proud of having something that's bigger than me. Having something where every time I hear of a success story, anything from somebody getting an investment to, we had a crazy success story come across our desk over the summer that Carol Baskin, known from Tiger King, but a big cat rescue.
And now Dancing with the Stars.
And now Dancing with the Stars, met a developer to create a virtual reality simulation of seeing tigers at the Synapse Summit this year, because her big mission is trying to get away from tigers in captivity. So if you can still learn about them in virtual reality and you can actually then visualize what it's like to be around a tiger in the wild, you can learn that much more. Those to me are what matter so much. I do see Synapse growing further as a statewide organization. I see a lot of digital content upcoming. I see a big focus coming with our digital platform over the next few years. That's going to be a big way to really help keep the state connected. Looking at what Startup Nation Central has done with their digital platform, we're actively looking at resources and ways that we can propel that platform into the 2.0, 3.0 in the future state. And I see Florida really being on the map as a place where people are growing companies they want to move to. If you look at just the pure economics of it, to run a company in San Francisco versus to run a company in Florida, it used to be investors wanted people to move to San Francisco so they could be there, so you could kind of be right in front of them. Now we're in a more virtual world and investors are used to having virtual meetings. Why would you not want to have a company that you could run in Florida for 60% the cost?
Right.
it's just a good business deal. It's smart, and it's a win for everybody, except for maybe the city of San Francisco, and unfortunate for them, but maybe that can be our gain.
Well, Brian, it's been great chatting with you. Is there anything else that we didn't ask that you wanted to get across to the audience?
Yeah, please pay attention for the Synapse Summit 2021. Tickets are available now at synapsesummit.com. We're doing it very differently this year. Again, we don't want to be a super spreader event. We did not want to put anybody in harm's way in terms of COVID-19. So we're doing what I'm calling a predominantly virtual event. It's not entirely virtual. We're doing small in-person, intimate get-togethers throughout the state. There's VIP experiences. There's some really cool stuff. We're in the process right now of locking down a couple of the keynotes. There's going to be more than one because it's going to be taking place over 4 days. So we have keynotes over 4 days. It's a great setup, the way that the program is set up with 8 very intriguing tracks. Great organizations have already bought in and are really thrilled to be a part of this. PwC, and Grow Financial, and Florida Blue Guidewell, Align, Tampa General Hospital. Some of these great growing companies are already saying, yes, we really want to be a part. We see the vision. We like where this is going, and this can be successful once again. And we're really excited about this.
And what are the dates?
The dates are going to be March 8th through 11th.
Got it.
We just saw the Gasparilla announcement is going to be in April. Everybody's thinking about how do we do things differently this year and in different times. So it's a little bit later this year than normal, but over the course of the 4 days. And general admission tickets are free. So if you want to just come and be a part of the programming and listen to 1 or 2 sessions, there's no reason not to. And we're really thrilled to continue to celebrate Florida, discover innovators in Florida, engage with Florida and the innovators across the state, and make sure that we keep telling everybody repeatedly, yes, that we all have swagger, have to get that in for you, but also innovation lives right here.
Well, Brian Kornfeld, CEO and co-founder of Synapse, thanks for joining us today.
Aakash, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It's been great. This is Aakash Patel with Elevate Inc., and you've been watching our podcast. This was Season 1, Episode 14. Thanks so much for joining us.